Hey, what's up, card fighters? So I wanted to go over the more or less the basics of deck building, at least for D standard format, because that's the only format that I play more or less competitively right now. I don't really take premium seriously because I don't have a reason to, because I don't have a premium locals, I don't have a premium playtest group, and I don't have I don't have reasons to go to premium tournaments right now. Or the same with V Premium. Like, again, I don't have a V Premium locals. I don't have a V Premium playtest group. I don't have like any V Premium tournaments I would actually like to compete in. So what I can help you with is standard. So this video is going to be more or less geared towards new players or players that do play those formats and do want to like get into standard and give standard a try. Which deck building in standard is, if you take this approach, deck building in standard could become very, very much easier for you, because you realize how many cards you actually have to play with and how many cards are interchangeable and which slots are your tech slots in this scenario. So the example deck I'm gonna be profiling is Ava. I feel like Ava is a beautiful example of deck building in D standard because it just follows these basic principles. So let's get into it. So you have a 50 card deck. You have a 50 card deck, which is then divided into a 46 card deck because you have a 4 card ride deck, a grade 0, a grade 1, a grade 2, and a grade 3. So now you have so now your 50 card deck is a 46 card deck, which then is divided again by 16 because you have your 16 triggers. You have your 1 over trigger, and then the rest of your triggers can be more or less whatever you desire, but more often than not, people do tend to stick with the 1 over trigger, 8 criticals, 3 fronts or 3 draws, and then 4 heals of any kind. So put this right here, and let me put this right here. So now 46 just got, again, you divided it, or not like divided, but you minused 46 by 16. And now, not only that, you have to minus it by 4 again, because if you want your deck to, well, not be like competitive, but like if you want to have your deck built the most optimally, you want to play 4 PGs. So 3 DPGs, unless you can't have access to them, but they're very accessible. They were reprinted as like different units, but they're still DPGs. And then 1 Elementaria. This can be interchangeable for just like another DPG depending on what deck you play. There are some decks that just can't really afford to run the DPG, or like I said, like this is a card that's like more or less a little bit harder to find nowadays, so you just might not have this. So let's just stick with so now you went from a 46 card deck, you went from a 50 card deck, minused it by 4, now you're at a 46 card deck. And then you're going to minus it by 16. And then you're going to minus it by 4 again because you have your 16 triggers and then you have your 4 PGs. So what's 46 minus 20? 26. So now your deck is comprised of 26 cards that you could choose these cards to be whatever you want them to be. But if your deck is, which most decks in standard do run Persona Ride, you're going to minus your deck count by 3 again because you're going to you more often than not want to max out on your Persona Ride. So you're going to be running 3 Persona Rides. That's the maximum amount of number you could run unless this isn't the card that you're playing in your ride deck. So 3 Avas. So now we're going to minus it by 3. So we went from 26 to 23. So now your deck, you have 23 cards to play with that you can put, and these 23 cards can be whatever you choose them to be in your deck. But let me clear these triggers out the way. Let me clear these cards out the way real quick, so I can have enough space to show you guys the main deck. Take that out the way. So you've now minused it by 3. So now you have 23 cards. Now, most decks in standard, depending on what archetype, like let's say the archetype of Ava, which is the glitter research archetype, there are certain cards, staple cards, that you want to max out on, like your 4 copies of your Knight of Blackness Obscudade. So you want to max out on this card because this deck more or less revolves around Obscudade. Superior calling Obscudade, retrieving Obscudade, like returning Obscudade back to the deck. So you want to max out on your 4 Obscudades. You also want to max out on your research order cards. Right now, the maximum amount of research orders you could play is 8, but you want to play all of them because you want to make sure that you have, you need at least 3 research cards so that when you do Superior Call Obscudade, Obscudade is going to come out of the soul and Obscudade is going to have the crit. So you want to play 4 copies of each of your research order cards. So right now, you're at 23 cards. You minus 23 by 4 3 times. So what? That's going to be 12. So you're going to minus 23 by 12. You then have 11 cards left, if my math is correct. Yes, 23 minus by 12. So now you have 11 cards left in your deck. What are you running for those 11 cards? So another quote-unquote staple would be, because one of your order cards have discard costs, because you discard for your ride line, and you're generally playing like 1 order a turn, because you search off 2 orders from your ride line. Another good card / staple card that you might play in this deck is 4 copies of Combine Rusher. Now you're playing 4 copies of Combine Rusher, so that's minused by 4 once again. So what does that put us at? That puts us at 7. So we have 7 cards left in our deck that we can play with. Another card that might be a staple, because this deck counterblasts a lot. Your Vanguard ability costs 2 counterblast. Combine Rusher costs a counterblast. Even though you do have the ability to countercharge with one of your research orders, you still are going to want to play a countercharger. So another staple, quote-unquote a staple in the deck, is Bulble Mind. So you're playing 4 Bulble Minds. Now, Bulble Mind at 4. So we go from 7 minus by 4. We have 3 cards left in our deck to play with. Now, this 3-card slot would more or less be considered a tech slot. You're running all the cards you want to run at your, the maximum of 4 copies. You're running your 4 Obscudades. You're running your 8 Research Orders. You're running your 4 copies of Combine Rusher. And you're running your 4 copies of Bulble Mind. Combine Rusher so you can Superior Call from the drop zone. Bulble Mind for the counter charge and the soul charge you get off of it. So the 3 cards left can technically be any 3 cards you want, because you already have the core main engine of your deck. So this 3-card slot, like, if we're taking Ava, and we're like, Ava's like a standard deck in terms of, it's a very easy deck to build. In terms of how to build it. We're not talking about like how easy it is to build monetary wise, but how easy it is to build structurally. Because, you're just maxing out everything at 4 basically. So what do you play in that 3 of tech slot? Again, like I said, this can be more or less whatever you want. What I play in this 3 of tech slot is, I play 3 copies of Second Doll. Now, what Second Doll is, in this case, would be a tech card. A lot of people, they either cut this up to 2, only play 1, or don't play it at all, and they play something else. Like, they play the grade 1 that gets 2k for every set order you have in your order zone. They play the grade 1 that's counterblast 1, it gets 10k when it boosts if you have 2 set orders in your order zone. Like, this is the tech slot that you can play whatever you want to play. I chose Second Doll for, this is added consistency, because I could return basically every card in my deck with Second Doll. I could return my Persona Rides. I could return my Black Knight. I can return these. I can return my Research Orders, believe it or not, because all it has to be is a non-trigger unit. So you could return Research Orders to the bottom of your deck. So that is what we're playing of our 3 of slot. So this is what rounds up, and this is what makes our 26 card main deck. Now, again, if you're running Persona Rides, which more often than not, you're running Persona Ride at max copies, this 26 card main deck can now become 23 cards. So in reality, in terms of building your deck in Standard, you really have only 23 cards, more or less, that you can play with. Of course, your trigger lineup is subjective. Your trigger lineup is subjective, but the number is not. The number will always be 16. Your perfect guards are technically subjective, but more often than not, if you are building optimally, you're going to be running 4 perfect guards. So those numbers will always be final. So your trigger count, along with your PG count, along with your ride line, that already takes up 24 cards of your deck. So you have roughly 26 to 23 cards you can play of, not including staple cards, like I said. More often than not, it really depends on the archetype you're choosing, but more often than not, the archetype itself will lend you a hand in the deck building process, and then whatever's left in terms of like tech cards will be of your choosing. So this really isn't too long of a video. I got this idea from a Magic video I was watching on how to like create like a standard Magic deck / draft deck. So I just thought there really wasn't anything about this that I know of. I could be wrong, for Vanguard. So my general thought process was like, this could help newer players / this could help veteran players that, you know, they don't think about deck building like this. Maybe they just think, I'm going to put in all the cards I want first, and then let's see what's left over, which, you know, is also something that you can do in the deck building process. But like breaking it down to just numbers, this is like the easiest way for me on how I build decks / how I profile decks. I generally either I leave like the ride line or, you know, the triggers and the perfect guards for the end, or I just get them out the way in the beginning of the video, because more often than not, they're very standard and not really interchangeable. And then, you know, the juice and the berries is really just these 26 to 23 cards, which make up your main deck. Whichever, like I said, whichever ride line you choose, whichever archetype you choose, may or may not help you in that area. But don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you guys' thoughts are on the video. Maybe there's something that you want me to cover in the future that this video didn't quite get to you about deck building. But this is just like a very basic breakdown of the deck building process, at least from my point of view. Later.